Hey team, welcome back. So, I think we're done with the create operations for projects. At least up to this point, we're gonna have some additional steps once we start working with the user object and once we start implementing security. But I think for now, we have a good thing going. It's pretty clean and it's also has a lot of validation and all that stuff, so this should be really good for now. Now the next thing that we're gonna want to do is we want to start working on actually reading, right, which is the second letter in the CRUD acronym. So for this we are going to go to a repository, but not before we check our project. Now since we're building a project management tool, we want to be able to find the project whenever we have to find one to update or just to retrieve the information. We don't want to use the database ID because if you remember the demo and if you pay attention to the URLs, we're actually passing the project identifier to the URL so we can fetch our project. So we don't want to use this here. We don't want to pass some number. We actually want to pass the custom identifier. And in order for us to do this, we're going to use the power of JPA to actually be able to find a project by project identifier, by actually trying to find by the attribute. And we are safe to do this because we cannot update this and we cannot create duplicates. So this is a distinct value. So it is pretty safe to do this. Okay, so now let's go back to our project repository. And what we're going to do is that we're going to create the method. And JPA gives you a way, I think it's called JPQL, I think. Don't quote me on this. Take it with a grain of salt. It just slipped my mind, but I don't want to stop the video right now. So basically, it allows you to find by the attributes that are related to the object. So here you can find by project identifier. I think you might be able even to find by project name. Let me see. Yeah, project name. Anyway, if you have attributes that you can depend on that are unique and not updatable, but more importantly, probably unique it will be the main key, although updatable is a good rule to have as well. You can then type find by, and then this IntelliSense here is gonna take you through the attributes, and you can perhaps set or select attributes that you want to be able to find your object by. But in this case, we're gonna do find by project identifier. Okay, so the project identifier is a string, so basically we know that we are passing a string here, and this is all we need to do on the repository level. Now on the project service level, we want to also abstract this from the controller, and we're just gonna do a public method that returns a project object called find by actually I'm gonna call it find project by identifier, and then we're gonna pass it the string, which is a project ID. And then this pretty much just returns the project repository, find by identifier, by project identifier, and then we're gonna pass it the parameter. And this is really all we need to do here. So the next thing that we need to do, yeah, you guessed it, is to actually wire this up at the controller layer. So we are basically going to go back to our project controller, and we're going to create a get mapping. This time we're going to do a get mapping, and again we're going to do it on the same path that we defined here. So right now this path supports both post and it's going to support get in a few minutes. So here again, public response entity of type generic, get project by ID. And now here we need to pass a path variable. Okay, so basically we're going to put here slash curly braces and then the project ID. So we're going to pass this path variable so that we can actually pass it on to the service and then of course find our project. So we are going to use here the path variable annotation, and it is of type string, and it is the project ID. Now these two here need to match to a T. Okay, like even this, I think it won't work. I've had problems with this in the past when I was starting out. So these two here, they need to match. And then what we're going to do here is that we're going to obviously return a new response entity of type project. And then we're going to actually, let me extract this onto a new project location. And the reason I'm doing this is because we are also going to have to work on when the project is not found, which at this moment is going to throw an exception, but right now I'm just doing the happy path. Then the project, and then the HTTP status. Okay, at this moment you should be familiar with the response entity, even if you've never used it before. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, so now we're going to restart the server. And again, remember that we're still using H2, the H2 database. So we pretty much have to create a new project and then try to find it. So I'm going to create a few projects here. 1, 2, 1, 3. And that's good enough. And now we're going to do our get. And we're pretty much going to use the same API. And all we need to do now is just pass it the ID. Okay, and if we pass the ID, it should retrieve our project. And there you have it. This is really good. If we pass the other one, it also brings it back. Now, what happens if I put lowercase? Doesn't return anything, right? Because remember, and we talked about this before, we do want to avoid all ambiguity with this. So I'm just going to at the service layer, just gonna put it to uppercase. I could have done it at the controller layer, but again, I don't like putting. Remember, you want to try and keep. You don't want to have a whole lot of moving parts here. Okay, you want to have almost all of your logic always at the service layer. So we're just gonna restart this server, and then we're going to try it again. And let's create that one, and then now it should take lowercase. See, lowercase, it comes back, no problem, no problem. Now, I'm sure you noticed that when we passed it on a project that doesn't exist, an ID that doesn't exist, it gives you a 200 OK. Now, this is not an exception per se, because I mean, if it doesn't find anything, it just comes back as null, and that's not an exception. Or I mean, it's not a problem with the. It's not a problem at all. It's just that it's just finding. It's not finding it. That's all. And what we're gonna do to handle this is that we're gonna piggyback on our exception, the exception that we just created. I was gonna create a new exception for this one just to kind of keep practicing, but you know what? Let's just use this one, the one that we have, and just in the interest of time. So what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna extract the project object here, project equals, and then we're gonna pass on this thing here. Perfect. And then since this is not an exception, if we put on a try catch, it's not going to do anything because, again, there's no exceptions to be caught. So for this one, in order to throw this exception, we actually need an if statement. And all we need to do is, like, if the project is null, then throw that exception. And actually, I'm just going to copy paste this line here. Throw new exception, project ID, doesn't exist. Does not exist. Okay. And then if it all goes well, then we're going to return the project. Okay. So now we're going to try this again. And this time around, I think we can just actually we're going to try the whole thing just to be all encompassing. And here we're going to try and find it. Oh, internal server error. Okay, let me just make sure that the actual operation works. Let's make sure that this one works. Yeah, this one works fine. If I try this one, it's giving me an internal server error. Actually, give me a second. Let me see why is that. Let me just check my notes real quick to see what I might have done wrong. Give me just a moment. I want to read the error message. So it's basically giving me a null pointer exception. This is a little weird because I was expecting this to work. Identifier. Let me just correct this real quick. Well, I think what could have gone wrong here. Okay. Let me just try something real quick here. So it returns the project, it takes a parameter, it then tries to find this. Yeah, this shouldn't be a problem. I really don't see what I'm doing wrong here, but I'm sure I'll find out. If I can't find out what's going on, oh, there it is. Huh. So I'm not really sure, but all I changed was this, and I'm not really sure what it's actually not liking here. Oh, I know what's wrong. Okay, so if this project is null, then how am I going to extract the get project identifier, right? And this is the problem with copy pasting. You know, no shame in calling it what it is, because this is what happens, right? I was super cocky, like, oh, it's just the same thing. No, don't worry about it. See, I copy pasted it, and then I got cocky thinking that I was moving faster, and actually I wasted your time and my time when I could have just done the thing from scratch, and we'll probably be out of this video by now. Now I want to test everything just to be sure that everything is working. So I'm going to pass one that doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. I'm going to pass one that exists, and it's all good. All right. Sorry for that, but I hope that you guys learned that lesson through me, that those are the risks and the dangers of doing copy paste coding, right? So anyway, that was a humbling moment. It's all good. It happens. Okay, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next lecture.